I was halfway under the sink, one sock soaked, the other mysteriously missing, when the universe decided to ruin my perfectly normal evening. Why does everything in this apartment leak? I muttered, twisting the oversized wrench in my hand. It was ridiculous, honestly. The thing was heavy, cold, and way bigger than anything a normal person needed for a cheap kitchen pipe, but it worked, and right now that was all that mattered. The pipe groaned like it had personal beef with me. Water dripped steadily onto my arm. I tightened the bolt a little more. "Come on, don't embarrass me like this," I said to the plumbing, as if it had feelings. Behind me, the door slid open with a soft hiss. I didn't bother looking. If you're here to tell me the lights are flickering again, I already know. This place is... silence. Not normal silence. The kind that felt focused. I glanced over my shoulder. My alien roommate was standing completely still in the doorway. Now, to be clear, she was always a little weird. That's what happens when your landlord casually says, "You'll be sharing with an off-world exchange resident." Like it's no big deal. But this was new. Her eyes were locked on my hand. More specifically, on the wrench. Her expression was impossible to read at first. Then it shifted fast. Surprise. Curiosity. Something like awe. Then something I definitely didn't understand at all. "What?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She didn't answer. Instead, she took a slow step forward. Then another. Her gaze didn't move. "Okay," I said slowly, turning back to the sink and tightening the bolt again. "If you're judging my life choices, I'm already aware they're bad." Still nothing. I twisted harder. The pipe finally gave a satisfying click, and the dripping slowed, then stopped. Yes. I pumped the wrench slightly. That's how you do it. No plumber needed. Behind me, I heard a faint sound. Not a word. More like a sharp inhale. I turned again. She was closer now. Way closer. Close enough that I could see the subtle shift in her skin tone. Her species did that when they were emotional. Right now, it was flickering in strange, uneven patterns. You good?" I asked. Her eyes snapped up to meet mine for a fraction of a second, then dropped right back to the wrench. "You operate it with such confidence," she said quietly. I blinked. "It's a wrench." She tilted her head slightly, like I'd just said something deeply philosophical. "A tool," she corrected. "Yes, that's what a wrench is." Her gaze sharpened, but not a standard one. I looked down at it. "It's just a big adjustable. I got it cheap." Her skin flickered again, brighter this time. "Big," she repeated, almost to herself. "Yeah," I shrugged. "Bigger grip, more leverage. Makes things easier." She didn't respond immediately. Her attention was so intense it was almost uncomfortable. "Right," I said, setting the wrench down beside me. "Anyway, crisis averted. No more leak." That's when she moved again, fast. Not toward me, toward the counter. She picked up her small, tablet-like device. I barely paid attention. She was always using that thing, taking notes, scanning stuff, probably reporting back to her planet about how humans survive on instant noodles and poor decisions. I went back to tightening a second joint just in case. "What are you doing?" I asked absently. "Documenting," she replied. "Of course you are." I didn't think twice about it. Big mistake. Because on the other side of that little device, a stream had just gone live. At first, only a handful of viewers appeared. A quiet broadcast, labeled in her language as something like educational observation, human tool usage, rare specimen. The camera angle was low, slightly tilted, focused directly on the wrench in my hand. I was completely unaware. "All right," I muttered, testing the pipe again. "Hold together, you piece of..." The alien's voice cut in, soft but clear. Not to me. To them. "Observe the subject," she whispered, her tone filled with awe. "Note the scale of the tool relative to standard human equipment." The viewer count ticked upward. Dozens. Then hundreds. "They handle it with no visible strain," she continued. "Grip strength exceptional. Control precise." I frowned slightly, glancing back. "Are you narrating me again?" She froze for a split second, then turned, smiling too quickly. "No. You're definitely narrating me." Only minimally. Why? She hesitated. For educational purposes. I sighed. If this ends up in one of your weird reports, at least make me sound cool. She turned back to the device. The viewer count spiked. Thousands. Her voice lowered again, almost reverent. The human appears unaware of their own capability. The chat, far away on another world, exploded with reactions. Speculation. Excitement. Analysis. I wiped my hands on a rag and stood up, stretching. Done. Finally, I picked up the wrench again, tossing it lightly in my hand. Her entire body tensed. The subject demonstrates casual familiarity, she whispered, indicating long-term usage and mastery. Okay, seriously, I said, narrowing my eyes. Who are you talking to? No one, she said immediately. I stared at her. She stared back. Behind that calm expression, her device continued broadcasting to a rapidly growing audience. Tens of thousands now. I shook my head. You're weird. She didn't deny it. Instead, she looked at me, then at the wrench, then back at me. Something in her expression softened. Shifted. Where did you learn? She asked. To use a wrench? I snorted. Life. Stuff breaks, you fix it. She absorbed that like it was profound. Fascinating, she murmured. I leaned against the counter. You're seriously impressed by basic home maintenance? It is not basic, she said quietly. It is indicative. Of what? She hesitated. Then, very softly, potential. I raised an eyebrow. You're making this way bigger than it is. Behind her, the viewer count surged past 100,000. Clips were already being shared. The angle, the narration, the mysterious human casually wielding an oversized tool like it was nothing. A symbol was forming, and I had absolutely no idea. She glanced down at her device, just for a second. Her eyes widened. Then she looked back at me, something like realization hitting her all at once. I may have discovered something important, she whispered. Yeah, I said, grabbing a drink from the fridge. That my apartment sucks. She didn't laugh. Her gaze stayed locked on me, intense, almost glowing. Behind that calm surface, her stream continued to climb. Fast. Unstoppable. And somewhere far beyond Earth, millions of viewers were just starting to tune in. By the time I finished celebrating my victory over the world's most stubborn pipe with a cheap soda and zero dignity, something had already gone very, very wrong on a galactic scale. I just didn't know it yet. Can you hand me that cloth? I asked, pointing vaguely toward the counter. She didn't move. I looked up. She was staring at me again. Not unusual. But this time, there was a strange intensity behind it, like she was trying to memorize me. The cloth. I repeated. Oh. Yes. She quickly grabbed it and handed it over a little too carefully, like the act itself required precision. Thanks, I muttered, wiping my hands. You're acting weird. I am observing, she replied. You're always observing. This is different. I snorted. Yeah, fixing a sink. Real groundbreaking stuff. Behind that calm response, her device, still angled just right, was quietly broadcasting every second. The numbers weren't just climbing anymore. They were exploding. Hundreds of thousands had turned into millions in minutes. Entire discussion panels had already formed across her home networks. Analysts were pausing clips of me tightening bolts like it was some kind of elite demonstration. Influencers were reacting with exaggerated shock. Scholars were arguing over what the tool represented in human society. And at the center of it all was me, standing in a kitchen, arguing with plumbing. The subject displays effortless adaptability, she whispered softly toward the device. Note the way he transitions between tasks without hesitation. I glanced at her. There you go again. She froze. What? You're doing that voice. What voice? That documentary voice. Like I'm in some nature show. She blinked rapidly. You are not in danger. I wasn't worried about that part. She turned slightly away, clearly trying to compose herself. Behind her, the stream chat was going insane. He speaks with confidence. The tool is an extension of his will. Is this a mating display? The roommate is bonding with him. Her skin flickered again, warmer tones this time. She cleared her throat. You solved the problem quickly. Yeah, well, I've had practice, I said, shrugging. Stuff breaks, I fix it. That's just how it goes. She nodded slowly, absorbing every word like it mattered. Humans must rely heavily on tools, she said.
Yeah.
We don't exactly have claws or laser eyes. Yet you compensate, she replied, her tone almost impressed. I raised an eyebrow. You make it sound like we're underdogs. Her gaze sharpened. Are you not? I opened my mouth to respond, then paused. Okay, fair. She tilted her head slightly, watching me like I'd just proven a theory. Behind her, a new wave of viewers flooded in. Clips had spread beyond educational channels now. Entertainment feeds picked it up. Reaction streams. Commentary threads. And one phrase had started trending across her entire planet. The Toolmaster. I grabbed the wrench again, crouching back down to double-check the pipe. Let's make sure this doesn't start leaking again, I muttered. The moment I picked it up, she inhaled sharply. I froze. What? Nothing, she said quickly, but her eyes were locked onto the tool again. I frowned. You react every time I touch this thing. It is notable. It's metal. It is not just metal. I stared at her. She stared back. Behind her, millions of viewers leaned closer to their screens. I shook my head. You're officially weirder than usual today.
She didn't deny it.
Instead, she stepped a little closer. Too close. May I ask something? She said. Depends how weird it is. She hesitated. Then, carefully. Is the size standard? I blinked. Of the wrench? Yes. No, I said. It's bigger than normal. That's kind of the point. Her skin flickered again, bright, rapid pulses this time. Behind her, the chat exploded. Confirmed. Above standard. Rare trait. Genetic advantage? She looked down at her device briefly. Her eyes widened just a fraction. Then she looked back at me, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked nervous. You are unique, she said. I laughed. You're just figuring that out now. I suspected. Now I am certain. Because of a wrench. Yes.
Wow.
I stood up again, stretching my back. All right, I'm done. No more repairs today. She watched every movement like it mattered. The way I set the tool down. The way I wiped my hands. The way I casually leaned against the counter. To her, and to the millions watching, it wasn't casual at all. It was controlled. Intentional.
Skilled.
Legendary, even. You should rest, she said suddenly. Rest? I repeated. I just fixed one pipe. Recovery is important after exertion. I stared at her. I didn't run a marathon. She stepped closer again, her voice softer now. Even so, there was something different in her tone. Less analytical. More personal. I noticed it. And apparently so did millions of viewers. She is bonding. Emotional shift detected. This is no longer purely educational. I scratched the back of my head. You're acting like I just performed some heroic act. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at me, really looked at me. Not just the wrench this time.
Me.
You adapt, she said quietly. You solve problems. You do not hesitate. I shrugged. That's just being human. She held that thought for a moment. Then, almost to herself. Then humans are far more than we believed. I chuckled. Careful. You're gonna inflate my ego. She tilted her head slightly. Would that be inaccurate? Very. I do not think so. There it was again. That shift. Subtle, but real. She wasn't just fascinated anymore. She was starting to admire me. And she didn't even fully understand why. Behind her, the stream crossed another milestone. 10 million viewers. Entire alien networks now broadcasting highlights. Experts debating human capability. Memes spreading like wildfire. And in every single one of them, a blurry clip of me holding a wrench. I grabbed my drink again, completely unaware. You want one? She blinked. A beverage.
Yeah.
She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. I handed it to her. Our fingers brushed for a second. Her skin flickered brightly at the contact. I noticed. Okay, what was that? I asked. Nothing, she said too quickly. That was definitely something. She looked away. A minor biological response. To what? She hesitated. Behind her, the chat practically screamed. Physical contact. Significant. Bond forming. She took a small sip of the drink, clearly trying to regain composure. It appears, she said carefully, that prolonged exposure to you is affecting me. I smirked slightly. Yeah? In a good way, I hope. She looked at me again. This time, there was no confusion in her expression. Only certainty. Yes. For a brief moment, the room felt quieter. Even with millions watching. Even with an entire planet losing its mind over a misunderstood tool. Right there in that small, messy kitchen, something real started to form. And neither of us had any idea just how out of control everything was about to get. It started with the feeling that something was off. Not in a dramatic, world-ending way. Just small things. The kind of stuff you almost ignore until it piles up enough to bother you. My phone lagged for no reason. The Wi-Fi icon flickered like it was having an identity crisis. Even the lights did that subtle dim bright thing like they couldn't decide if they were tired or possessed. I stared at the ceiling. If this place explodes, I'm not paying the deposit. Across the room, she was very still.
Too still.
You notice anything weird? I asked. No, she said quickly. I slowly turned my head. You answered that way too fast. I did not. You did. She avoided eye contact. That's when I knew. All right, I said, sitting up. What did you do? Nothing. That's never true when you say it like that. She hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. Okay, seriously. I continued, narrowing my eyes. You've been acting strange since the whole wrench appreciation moment. Now my stuff is glitching. So either the apartment is cursed. It is not cursed. Or you did something. Silence. I leaned forward. You did something. I may have, she started, then stopped. You may have what? Shared something. With who? She didn't answer. That's when my phone buzzed.
Once.
Then again. Then nonstop. I picked it up. Notifications flooded the screen. Messages from unknown numbers. Weird symbols I didn't recognize, and a bunch of translations. What the? I scrolled. Why is something called Galactic Trends trying to tag me? She winced. Slowly. Define shared, I said. She took a breath, like she was preparing to confess to a crime. I initiated an observational stream, she said. I blinked. A what? A live stream. I stared at her. You live streamed me fixing a pipe? Yes. I waited for the punchline. It didn't come. To who? I asked. She hesitated again. Everyone. I blinked slower this time. Everyone as in your friends? No. Your school? No. My eyes narrowed. Your planet? She nodded. I leaned back in my chair. You live streamed me. To your entire planet? Yes. There was a long pause. Then I laughed. Not a small laugh. A full, confused, this can't be real kind of laugh. Okay, I said, wiping my face. That's actually kind of funny. She didn't laugh. My smile faded. Why aren't you laughing? Because it has escalated. I stared at her. Define escalated. She slowly turned her device toward me. The screen lit up. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I saw it. A video.
Me.
Under the sink. Holding the wrench.
Zoomed in.
Dramatic lighting. Slow motion edits. There was narration, her voice, talking about precision, control, and exceptional capability. Below it, numbers. Big numbers. Views. 47,892,113. I blinked. That's not real. She didn't respond. I looked again. The number ticked upward. 47,892,114. 47,892,120. That's not real. I repeated, quieter this time. It is, she said. I scrolled. More videos. Different angles.
Clips of me talking.
Clips of me using the wrench. Clips with dramatic music. Clips with titles I couldn't even read. But the translations were worse. The tool master demonstrates dominance. Rare human specimen. Extreme tool proficiency. Why humans are unstoppable. No, I said, shaking my head. Nope. Absolutely not. She shifted slightly. It was meant to be educational. Educational? I repeated. You turned me into a documentary series. The response was unexpected. I stared at the screen, then at her, then back at the screen. Why am I called the Tool Master? She looked away. It is a respectful title. I don't want a title. It is already widely adopted. I dropped the device onto the table like it had personally betrayed me. This is insane. She nodded. Yes. You streamed me without telling me. Yes. To millions of aliens. Yes. Who now think I'm some kind of, what, mechanic god? She hesitated. Yes. I stood up, pacing.
No. No, no, no.
This is how people end up in weird experiments. You are not being experimented on, she said quickly. How do you know? Because if they intended harm, they would not be asking questions first. I stopped. They're asking questions? Right on cue. There was a knock at the door. We both froze. Slow. Firm. Official. I pointed at the door. Tell me that's a coincidence. She didn't answer. The knock came again. Open the door. A voice said from the other side.
Come.
Human. I looked at her. She looked at me. I'm not opening that, I whispered. They will continue knocking. Let them. They may escalate. Of course they will. Another knock. Louder. Sir, we need to speak with you. I sighed. This is how it starts. She stepped closer. Remain calm. I am calm. You are pacing. I pace when I'm calm. The knock came again. I dragged a hand down my face.
Fine. Fine.
If I disappear, I'm blaming you. I accept responsibility. That does not make me feel better. I walked to the door and opened it. Two men stood there.
Suits.
Neutral expressions. The kind of people who looked like they didn't blink unless necessary.
Good evening, one of them said.
It was better before this, I replied. He ignored that. We'd like to ask you a few questions. Of course you would. Regarding recent exposure. I sighed. Let me guess. This is about the wrench. They exchanged a glance, then looked back at me. Yes. I leaned against the doorframe. Unbelievable. The second agent stepped forward slightly. How long have you possessed it? Since the hardware store had a discount. Are there others like it? Yeah. It's called a tool aisle.
They paused.
Clearly not satisfied with that answer. The first agent spoke again. Do you understand the attention you've attracted? Yes, I said flatly. Apparently I'm famous for fixing a sink. That is one interpretation. What's the other one? He hesitated. That you represent a level of human capability not previously documented. I stared at him, then slowly looked back at her. She looked very guilty. You told them that? I asked. I may have emphasized certain aspects. I turned back to the agents. It's a wrench. They didn't react. It tightens bolts, I added.
Still nothing.
It's not a weapon. It's not advanced technology. It's not. We understand, the agent said. I blinked. You do?
No.
Great. There was a pause. Then the second agent asked very seriously, Why are aliens calling you the Tool Master? I closed my eyes,
took a deep breath,
then pointed behind me without turning around. Ask her. Silence filled the room, and somewhere behind me, I could practically feel her trying to disappear. This was officially out of control. I should have panicked. That probably would have been the normal, reasonable response. Instead, I stood there in the doorway, staring at two completely serious government agents who were waiting for me to explain why half the galaxy apparently thought I was some kind of legendary figure because of a wrench. Behind me, she shifted slightly, clearly debating whether she could phase through a wall and escape responsibility. I sighed. All right, I said, stepping back and gesturing inside. If this turns into an experiment, I'm charging rent. The agents stepped in without reacting. Of course they didn't. They looked around the apartment like they were scanning for hidden secrets. All they found was a slightly cleaner sink and a pile of questionable life choices. One of them turned to me. We would like a demonstration. I blinked. Of what? The tool. I rubbed my face. You walked over here to watch me use a wrench. It is necessary. I looked at her. She gave me a small, apologetic nod. You owe me for this, I muttered. Then I grabbed the wrench. The moment it was in my hand, her skin flickered again.
Not subtle this time. Bright. Fast.
Almost like she couldn't control it. The agents noticed. They exchanged a glance. Right, I said, holding the wrench up. This is it. The legendary object. Try not to faint. They didn't laugh. Of course they didn't. I crouched back down near the sink, mostly because it was the only thing in the apartment that looked like it needed doing. I loosened the bolt I had just fixed earlier. Step 1, I said casually. You find the problem. Behind me, I heard the faint sound of her device activating again. I froze mid-motion. You're not streaming this again. A pause. I may have resumed the broadcast. I slowly turned my head. You what? It is already trending. I looked at the agents. They didn't stop her. In fact, one of them stepped slightly to the side, out of the camera's way. Of course you're okay with this, I muttered. I looked back at the wrench, then at the pipe, then at my life choices. Fine, I said. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it properly. I adjusted my grip, exaggerating the motion just a little. Not enough to look fake. Just enough to look impressive. Behind me, millions, no, probably more by now, were watching. Step 2, I continued. You apply pressure where it matters. I tightened the bolt again, slow and controlled. The metal clicked into place.
Clean.
Precise. Behind me, I heard her inhale sharply again. The agents leaned in just slightly. And somewhere out there, an entire alien audience probably lost its collective mind. I stood up, spinning the wrench once in my hand before setting it down. And step 3, I said, you don't overthink it. Silence. Then one of the agents spoke. That was efficient. Yeah, I said. That's kind of the point. The other agent nodded slowly. Minimal effort. Maximum result. Welcome to basic problem solving. They both looked impressed, which was honestly the weirdest part of all this. I turned to her. Happy. She didn't answer immediately. She was staring at me again. But this time, it wasn't just curiosity or fascination. It was something warmer. Something certain. You make it look easy, she said quietly. It is easy. She shook her head slightly.
No.
It is not. For a moment, everything else faded. The agents. The stream. The absurdity of the situation. It was just the two of us standing there in a small, slightly broken apartment. You adapt, she continued. You solve problems without hesitation. You create solutions from simple tools. I shrugged. That's just being human. She stepped closer. Closer than before. This is why they are watching, she said softly. Not just the tool. I blinked. What? It was never just the tool. I opened my mouth to respond. Then my phone buzzed again. I groaned. What now? I checked the screen. Another notification. Another video. But this one made me freeze. It was a split-screen clip. On one side, me, holding my wrench like an accidental icon. On the other side, some other human, holding an even bigger wrench. I stared at it. You've got to be kidding me. She leaned in slightly, looking at the screen. Her eyes widened. There are more like you. Yeah, I said flatly. We call them people. The agents exchanged another glance. One of them quietly muttered, "This complicates things." Does it? I said. Because to me, this just proves your entire theory is ridiculous. Behind her, the stream, still running, exploded again. New comments. Faster than before. Another tool master. They are not unique. This is a species trait. She looked back at me, and instead of panic, she smiled. A small, genuine smile. That makes it even more remarkable, she said. I blinked.
How?
Because it means, she replied, that what I saw in you is not rare. I tilted my head. That's your takeaway? Yes. She stepped even closer now. No hesitation. No matter how many others exist, she continued softly, you are still you. For once, I didn't have a sarcastic response ready. You're getting really serious about this, I said. I am being honest. There was a pause. Then I smirked slightly. So, what? I'm still your tool master? Her skin flickered again, bright, warm tones. Yes, she said. I laughed. That's not going away, is it?
No.
Great. Behind us, one of the agents cleared his throat. We will be monitoring the situation, he said. Of course you will, I replied. But at this time, he continued, we see no immediate threat.
Wow, I said.
High praise. They turned and left as quietly as they arrived.
The door closed.
Silence settled in again. I looked around my apartment. Same place, same sink, same life. Except now, apparently, I was some kind of accidental symbol of human capability across the galaxy. I picked up the wrench again, turning it in my hand. This is still ridiculous, I said. She stepped beside me. Yes, she agreed. Another pause. Then she added, softer this time, but also true. I glanced at her. She was looking at me again. Not the wrench.
Me.
And this time, there was no confusion in it at all. Just quiet certainty. I exhaled, shaking my head slightly. You know what the funniest part is? What? I leaned back against the counter. Humans don't even think about this stuff, I said. We just do it.
Fix things.
Figure things out. Survive. She nodded slowly. That is why it is extraordinary. I smirked. Guess we've been underselling ourselves. She tilted her head slightly. Perhaps.
My phone buzzed again.
I didn't even check it this time.
Didn't need to.
I already knew what it was. More views. More clips. More aliens discovering that humans weren't as simple as they thought. I looked at the wrench one last time, then set it down. Next time something breaks, I said, you're fixing it. She blinked. I am. Yeah. Educational purposes. She considered that. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. I will try. I chuckled. Somewhere out there, millions were still watching, still analyzing, still turning something simple into something legendary. And honestly, maybe they weren't completely wrong. Because if there was one thing I was starting to realize, it wasn't about the tool. It never was. It was about the fact that, no matter how ordinary it seemed to us, being human was kind of insane. And, apparently, across the galaxy, that made all the difference.